Welcome back to the NACMA Podcast, the official podcast of the National Association of Collegiate Marketing Administrators, the leading organization developing today's rising CROs and CMOs in college athletics. Today's host, Matt Lavery, Associate AD for Marketing and Fan Experience at Coastal Carolina, will dive into a topic that many departments are wrestling with, the divorce of marketing and fan experience. We'll explore how different athletic departments are structuring or restructuring their teams, what's driving the shift, and how these models are impacting revenue, collaboration, and the in-venue experience. Matt is joined by co-hosts Sam DeMuzio from Mississippi State and Ashley Terry from Maryland. Today's guests bring firsthand insights from two departments who have already lived this transition. Jake Stocker, Director of Game Presentation and Fan Experience at Michigan, along with Jordan Looby, Associate AD for Marketing and Revenue Strategy at Maryland. They'll walk through when and why their programs split these units, what worked, what hasn't, and what's next as college athletics continues to evolve. Now, let's get into it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for another NACMA podcast. My name is Matt Lavery. I am the Associate AD for Marketing and Fan Engagement at Coastal Carolina. Bringing to you guys a podcast today about the divorce of marketing and fan experience. So splitting up and diving into departments that have split up their departments in marketing and fan experience and seeing how that's going a little bit and seeing if it's something that your department may want to also think about. So I'm going to let our other two co-hosts introduce themselves, and then we'll introduce our guests from Michigan and Maryland, and then we'll dive into it. So go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. My name is Sam DeMuzio. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director of Fan Experience here at Mississippi State. Excited to be joining the podcast today.
Hi, guys. I'm Ashley Terry, Assistant Director of Fan Development and Event Marketing here at Maryland.
Awesome. And we are joined by Jake Stocker and Jordan Looby from Michigan and Maryland. You guys want to introduce yourselves to the NACMA group?
Sure. I'm Jake Stocker. I'm the Director of Game Presentation and Fan Experience at Michigan Athletics. I have been at Michigan for about 15 years, so I've been here for quite a bit of time and gone through a lot of different departments and structures and all that during my time here at Michigan.
Yep, and my name is Jordan Looby. I am the Associate AD of Marketing and Revenue Strategy at the University of Maryland. Like Jake, I've been here for a long time, not quite as long as him, but I think almost 13 years now. So been fortunate to stay at one spot for a long time and now call this place home, and certainly have seen a lot of change too, especially recently with this topic at hand.
Well, yeah, definitely want to jump in it. And I was like both of you mentioned, you kind of have been at your schools for a decent amount of time. Can you each talk about kind of when this divorce between marketing and fan engagement happened, and a little bit of your role in doing that with your departments?
Yeah, so at Michigan, we really started it back in 2011 was the first time that we really started breaking up marketing and fan experience and starting to divide up just the different tasks that people had at hand, knowing that it was still important to focus on marketing, but it was also marketing was getting a lot more in depth. You had digital marketing going on. You had paid advertising. It wasn't just the traditional, hey, we're going to run a newspaper ad, we're going to put a billboard up anymore. So it needed some more in-depth tasks there. You needed more data as it came to emails to be sending that. So 2011, our department started adding in people that were assigned just to game presentation at that point. The game presentation at that point, game presentation fan experience, was more of, I would say, still marketing promotions. You were still doing a lot of the marketing. You probably still had a bigger hand than I have in it nowadays. But it was really starting to focus on how do we have the best event for our fans? How do we tie in the storytelling? How do we make sure that we are conveying using our events as one of our platforms, as one of our own media to continue getting fans to keep coming to athletic events? We really started changing. 2015 was really the first change where we really divided stuff up, split it up. We changed athletic directors at that time. And one of his big focuses was really breaking up the departments and really putting the focus on. And that's how we've pretty much been structured since. There's been some small changes, but overall now my main focus is on the game presentation, how we're putting on the best events on every single game for every fan coming, for our student athletes, and making sure that everyone is there showing up at a Michigan athletics event. We're using that as a platform to storytell and be part of our brand.
For us at Maryland, this happened much later than it did for Jake at Michigan. We divorced our units in November of last year. So we're just past a year. I think it was like November 17th or 18th. We had one football game left. So we still pseudo operated as one team and still do, I think, 2 degrees. But yeah, this was really recent. So for 12 years of my time here at Maryland, we were a team called Marketing Strategy and Fan Experience. So both of those sides. And with the last couple of years and how the landscape of college athletics has changed and revenue generation has become more and more important as expenses have continued to rise, our department looked at this area in particular to try to figure out how can we better specialize to do the exact same things that Jake just talked about at Michigan. Like, how can we uplift our event days, our event presentations, so that they're transcendent to what's going on the court, where even if you're not winning, your events are worth coming to. And then at the same time, at the revenue side, when you're working on a script for a football game that's 3 days ahead of you, but you have another game that has massive revenue potential a month and a half from now, if you're writing that script, you're probably not focusing on as much on that game that's a month and a half away, but it might be more important at that moment, considering or depending on where you are in terms of your sales for the game in 3 days. So we looked at how can we allow our team to continue to focus on that big matchup a month and a half from now, while we're still writing a script and not arriving on Saturday at kickoff without a timing sheet, script, format, etc. And so that's why the shift was made. I think for us, it's been good in that we've been able to specialize definitely more. And there's also was a little bit of a refocus of our priorities too at that point of, hey, what's important, because we still have the same number of staff. We didn't staff up on either side, to be honest. So we weren't able to then realize this massive increase in the size of the pie, right? It was more just we were dividing the pie differently. So I think that's something we need to work towards, is actually increasing the size of the pie. But right now that forced us to then just deprioritize some things that maybe weren't as important in today's world for Maryland.
Yeah, I think that's really well put, Jordan. I work on the fan experience side myself, so I've kind of seen it. We've been that way for about 5 years now. But I have a question more so for Jake, is what had to change between 2011 and now? What had to change that maybe you didn't expect to make this divorce effective, to maintain the effectiveness of each unit? What were a couple key things that had to change that maybe you didn't anticipate?
I think the biggest change that had to happen was you have to have a lot more collaboration and communication across your department when you are split up from here. When it's one person handling all the marketing, all the fan experience, that person is going to be the go-to person. That's who the coaches are going to go to. That's who can answer all the questions. That's who can make a decision right there. Now, what has gotten really important that we've grown and we've made a lot of progress, I would say, over the last 5 years here at Michigan, is just really trying to grow how you collaborate with different departments. We do our marketing planning meetings, or now external relations planning meetings, where it's including us. Our team does still lead that process. We're not officially the marketing, but we're still leading that marketing planning process. And it's tying in the communication staff, the creative staff, your video staff, our ticket sales staff where needed, our graphic designer. So it's bringing all those different people together and making sure that everybody gets on the same page. And that's what's been the biggest change, is a lot of times a coach could come to you and say, hey, you're the one that can answer all the questions. You're the one that can get this done. And now it's really taking that step back and saying, hey, I understand what you're saying. I will bring this to the rest of our group, and then we will get back to you with what is that best answer. And that has really been the biggest change, but it's also allowed us to be more successful and me not have to focus on, hey, I have a coach who wants to know why we're not selling tickets to this event. Now I can say, hey, reach out to this person. They're going to be able to help you. They're going to do a better job. They're in ticketing on day to day, instead of I'm spending a little bit of time worried about what ticket prices are we setting? And I'm really focused on how do we combine everything together? How do we take all those different elements and put on the best event?
I have a quick follow-up to this, if you don't mind, because that I think for us, and Ashley can speak to this because I didn't say this earlier, but I'm on the revenue side. Ashley's on the sort of the fan development, event marketing side. That's exactly, I think, what our primary pain points are and have been, that we've had to kind of work towards. Like, how can we mitigate those pain points? Because we have less people on the revenue side, and some of our sports aren't ticketed, right? So I'm not as concerned with softball, for example, which doesn't have tickets for us, as I am women's basketball. And so the fan development and event marketing side, they still need a point of contact because we're running game days for them, even though our team on the revenue side doesn't have really any interaction with softball at this point. So naturally, the coaches are still, I think, because of history and because of the way we're set up, they're going to the fan development staff to ask about attendance still and revenue and things like that. So that part has been something we've kind of had to track down and figure out how to improve. And so Ashley's a really good example because she sends marketing updates to our women's basketball team every Monday, essentially with, hey, here's what's going on for each upcoming game. Here's what we're doing on campus, etc. And we even between, I think, the first or second send of that email to the second or third send of that email, the language that Ashley, who sends it, was adjusted a bit to reflect like, hey, I'm sending this, but this is coming on behalf of our marketing team and the revenue marketing team. And so we're now copied on those emails and are more involved so that if there is a question through the email or later at a content meeting that we have weekly or bi-weekly, for example, we're able to answer that for Ashley instead of Ashley having to track us down, find out what we're doing. If she didn't already know, because that's a piece of it too, we can answer it directly for that coach or staff member.
And I think just going off of what Jordan said in terms of staffing, we have added a little bit of staff, but it's not that much more than when I was doing just marketing in 2011. So what we've really been able to do is it's given us an opportunity to tie a lot of our interns into it as well and really elevate the interns that are working within our department, in our team, and give them experiences that they wouldn't necessarily get. So we've now started assigning them as the primary fan experience contact for some of our non-revenue sports and giving them pretty much the roles of our full-time staff. And that has allowed them to get a little piece in the marketing side of it, the community engagement side, all those different areas, fan experience. So then as they're applying for jobs as well, it's going to help them be those top candidates.
I think that's a really interesting point. I think that's something that a lot of people are going to be actually surprised to hear is that, Jake, that you guys didn't really staff up too much, and Jordan, you guys didn't staff up at all when you made this switch. I think people think that you need to add folks to both sides to be able to make this work. And I think probably the concern is that maybe something will fall off, right? Because you're now, maybe not thinking about things that you were thinking about before when you had a broader role. Now you're a little bit more, dialed into one piece of it. Have you guys seen any of that, or did you have to kind of take a step back in some areas to make this work? Has there been anything that has fallen off, or maybe is not necessarily important anymore in this day and age?
Yeah, I can jump in first on this one. We absolutely scaled back on things. I think we, as we reprioritized, and this is not just on the revenue side, it's on the fan development side too, because like we talked about earlier, you need to be building transcendent experiences in your venues so that people want to buy tickets. And when they come, they want to buy more. Like those things are so synchronous with each other. Like they're absolutely could not be less mutually exclusive. Like those need to work in concert with each other, I think, to drive revenues ultimately. So the in-game event presentation piece is as almost as much as a revenue driver as the actual revenue side, if not more. So for us to reprioritize and focus on the revenues, which will ultimately uplift our entire department, we needed on both sides of the marketing areas to deprioritize some things. So a really, I think, clear example is we don't do full comprehensive themes for every Olympic sport event like we used to. And now they weren't probably fully comprehensive previously because still we were dealing with bandwidth issues. So we were doing the best we could, but now we're very clear with coaches like, hey, men's soccer, we're picking 3 events that we're going to build comprehensive themes around. Volleyball, we're going to pick 5 events that we're going to build comprehensive themes around. And so that piece has then removed 5 to 7 other home events, depending on the sport or more, from the workload to a degree. Now we're still, obviously, you're still playing music and writing timing sheets and building all of the game day assets that you need, but you're not tracking down significant comprehensive initiatives and efforts surrounding each event. And that also has spilled into our email and marketing strategy and revenue strategy. So like I say for our revenue team, like we're revenue agnostic. Like we don't care where it's coming from. If Ashley identifies 4 theme events for volleyball, but then there's another volleyball match that has significant revenue potential, but is not one of the comprehensive theme matches, we're going to continue to promote the match that has the revenue potential because our job is to drive revenues. Ultimately, we're still supporting the theme event with assets via email, our own channels, etc. But we're going to focus on the events that have the opportunity to drive significant revenues. And we'll do that across all sports, regardless of there being themes. And we're going to focus less on the events that don't have revenue potential. So I think for both of us, we've really sort of like deprioritized a portion of our events and tried to leverage the ones that have high leverageability.
And I think on our end is similar to Jordan to some extent. What we've really tried to establish is more of a standard of what people are going to get when they come to a Michigan athletic event. So from the fan experience side, we want it to feel and seem like a Michigan athletic event, whether you're coming to a football game, whether you're coming to a tennis match. We want there to be those consistent themes, consistent looks on the video board, working with our digital marketing team who handles all of our email, who drives a lot of our revenue or attendance based upon whether it's a ticketed or non-ticketed sport. They are supporting pretty much all of our initiatives. For a tennis, we may not be sending an email for every single tennis match that's going on, but we will be for men's basketball, women's basketball, and creating a cadence that's going to be selling tickets. And we're making sure we're still communicating what's going on and that our fans know, whether it's getting a graphics to our creative team to put on social media or a push notification through our app. We are still supporting all of our teams. It's not to say giveaway theme-wise, we aren't doing as much as we used to. So a lot of our giveaways, if you look at our non-revenue sports now, we've actually started to save money on them. We've now bought 4 to 5 different giveaways, bought them in bulk, and then those are being divided up among sports similar to a tennis, a swimming, a track and field, where they're still going to get the giveaway for 1 to 2 events. It just might not be an exclusive giveaway like they used to have. It might be the same thing that's being given out at another sport because it makes more sense from a revenue perspective and knowing that there are different fans who are attending a track meet than a swim meet.
I love the fact that, you know, it's the unintended or the consequences of this, both sides, like Jake, you mentioned, the standardization of the branding. I think that is something that's necessary with this change, but it's also a positive, you know, for the department at the same time. And then Jordan, on your side, you're scaling back the amount of events, but you're also really heightening the focus on revenue, which is, I think, something that everyone is talking about, even if they're not split right now. So I love how that has kind of increased, you know, efficiencies on both sides by scaling back in some ways. So interesting points there. I wanted to ask, you know, Jordan, you're kind of a year into this, you know. And then Jake, you're longer into it, but obviously college athletics is a little bit different now than it was even a year, 2, 3 years ago. What is kind of maybe the next phase, Jordan, as you've kind of done it just for a year now that you're still trying to, you know, optimize it, and Jake maybe a little bit on the side of, you know, college athletics different than it has been. How are we changing to meet that time?
Yeah. I can start here. I think for us, it's part of what you just mentioned. Like we need to continue to refine and fine tune what we're doing, building synergies between our 2 marketing teams and finding ways to continue to information share and work collaboratively. I think at least for us, because we were such a tight-knit unit before, and I think our divorce was hard to adjust to for us, and it being so fresh, we continue to do things together, like our Secret Santa that we're doing right now, and we have joint staff meetings that we do once a month, and our holiday party, and all of those little things that build connection between us. Because again, what we're doing is so important that they're tied and they don't look like they're working in silos, in particular for our two units compared to even maybe other external units, right, that we work with. So we need to continue to fine tune those things. I think for us, the interesting piece here too is we also had a leadership change that happened 6 months after we split our unit up, and we brought in an AD and a CRO with pro sports backgrounds mostly. So they're more used to this split than even we are, and are probably more used to it being even more split than we currently are, where marketing and revenue and sales are almost completely separated out. So I think for our leadership now, we're trying to navigate like, what is even my role in particular? Like I oversee revenue marketing, but an integrated marketing team and a sales team, for example, at the Wizards are completely separate teams, right? And that's what they're used to. So it's continuing to figure out like, what is the next iteration of this in the context of our new leadership too. And there's no way that we can accomplish what we want to accomplish from a revenue standpoint and a fan experience standpoint if we do not add resources. So I think that is the next step. Like ultimately, we need more people. Ashley's team needs more people. Our team needs more people on the revenue side. And we need more resources too. But we can't have one without the other, right? We can't get more people and not add any resources. And that would certainly help, because obviously this work is hard enough for all of us, and we're overwhelmed enough. We don't need to add to that, or else you're going to drive people away and you're going to actually go backward. But we certainly can't add financial resources without adding people to use them, because you need people to be strategic and think about how to spend that extra $50,000, that extra $100,000. If you don't, you're probably not going to get maximum value out of it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is we need to add resources. I think undoubtedly, and there's no question about it.
And I would say on our end, I think Jordan really covered a lot of the same stuff for us. I think it's just continuing to collaborate and continuing to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I think that is how we've been successful. And there have been the speed bumps over the years as we've made these changes. You'll get times where somebody changes from a staff and a new person's coming in, whether it's from a pro sports team, from a different college, an entry level position, and they might not understand how our department operates because they were in a different role that was completely different and they're used to doing everything. So it's just really collaborating and getting everybody on the same page. And that's a struggle because everyone has their own goals. So we've done a really good job of, even though we are a split department, we meet together every single week. So we have Thursday morning meetings that have my team, so fan experience, digital marketing, ticket sales, and then our digital team is part of it as well. And just really getting everybody on the same page. Like Jordan said, we do a lot of stuff together. Yes, we have different leadership of each team, but I would say we are really, and we try to strive to be one collaborative team together and all working, all get us on the same page. There's going to be times that we come back and say, oh, this person really doesn't understand what we're trying to do, or they're focused on other priorities besides ours. But I think what I have to remind myself and remind my team is, at the end of the day, everyone has their own goals, has their own priorities, but we're trying to make Michigan athletics the best experience, have the most fans, create the most revenue. And in this changing world, stuff changes every single day. There's new NIL regulation, there's new revenue, there's new pieces where you're trying to have to get new people coming to games, or roster limits are changing. So we can't do the stuff we used to do for a long time. So it's just continuing to remind everybody, get on the same page, adapt as we go, and just work together. You're not always going to agree with everybody on your team or everyone you're working with. Hey, I want to do something this way, you want to do it this way, but let's get to that common solution is really that point. And that's going to make Michigan athletics and make our department operate better and do what's best for our coaches, for our teams, and for our fans.
I think whether you're divorced or not, I think some of those answers and where you guys are looking to grow and go next can be applied to anyone, and we're all kind of dealing with maybe some of the same things. So kind of leads me into my last question here is would you suggest this model to other schools?
I would say from my end, I think it really depends upon the resources you have available. If you're going to be able to have the staffing, we have a decent number of people. We have 7 full-time people between marketing, so digital marketing and the fan experience team. If you're a team of 2 people, it might not make as much sense because you're going to have to be so spread thin already that then you're going to just have to add additional meetings. So if you have the resources to do it and you want to really focus on enhancing your in-game experience and having people who are more focused on the digital landscape, I think it makes a lot of sense. But you have to make sure that it fits with your school and with your program, because I would hate to see somebody come into this, split up the program and say, oh, you're only going to have one person now who's responsible for the entire game presentation, or 2 people, and then one person has to do digital marketing, revenue marketing for all these sports, as revenue becomes such a big part of what we need on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would completely agree. And I think like even our 2 schools, like Jake's at Michigan and obviously me at Maryland, like our two school examples also, probably because of our revenues and how much revenue Michigan makes for football, right? Compared to Maryland football, like there may be different needs, right? Like there may not be as much of a need to have an exhaustive advertising budget to sell Michigan football tickets as there is to sell Maryland football tickets in the DC area. Like, so I think that should dictate your staffing a little bit too, because if you're spending $100,000 on advertising versus $1 million, you need someone who can manage that scale difference, right? So I think the staff size, as Jake said, is important. I think like the profile of your school and again, what your focus should be is important. And then so yes, I think like you should consider all of these things. I think every structure possible to find a way to advance your mission forward. For me, it's been very valuable. I think we definitely need to staff up, but we've clearly been able to specialize more. Like we've been able to focus a lot more. Now, again, that's come at with deprioritizing some things, but it's been invaluable in that regard, where you can, instead of being more of a jack of all trades, master of none, you start to be more of a master of one. And so I think there's still work to be done there for sure, but it allows us to focus more and ultimately uplift both areas, as opposed to trying to do our best to keep both areas afloat.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to end it. We're getting close to our time here. I know a couple of us have some meetings to jump to as we're getting to the tail end of crossover season. So Jordan, Jake, thank you both for joining us for another iteration of the NACMA podcast.
That wraps up today's episode of the NACMA podcast. A huge round of applause to Jake and Jordan for sharing such transparent, actionable insights into how Michigan and Maryland have navigated the separation of marketing and fan experience and what it means for departments looking to do the same. As always, NACMA remains committed to serving as the premier home for rising CMOs and CROs across college athletics, helping you lead, innovate, and elevate your programs. If you're a NACMA member, don't forget to join our NACMA Slack channel. It's the best place to connect with peers, share ideas, and continue important conversations like this beyond the podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the NACMA podcast.